Alright, so here's where I'll actually go through a couple graphing examples. This one just is kind of nice. It has the two ideas merged together. So remember when we're doing these, right, we're going to use the parent function for cosine. So when we think about cosine, right, we use the parent function based on the quadrantal angles. So 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. So the cosine, the x value at 0 degrees is 1. At pi over 2 we're 0. At pi we're negative 1. 3 pi over 2 we're 0. And at 2 pi we're back to 1. So when I look at A, I've got a amplitude of 4, a period of 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. And right now my midline is still 0. It's always 0 until we start shifting, kind of up and down. And we haven't seen anything that would do that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take A, I'm going to multiply all my y's by A. Then I'm going to take B, I'm going to divide all my x's by B. So I've got my new points going on here. I've got 0 divided by 2, pi over 2 divided by 2, pi divided by 2, 3 pi over 2 divided by 2, 2 pi divided by 2. So all those x's I'm dividing by 2. I always do the opposite of what's with x. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. Pi over 2 divided by 2, you double that denominator, because you'd be multiplying by 1/2. So it'd be pi over 4. Stays pi over 2. Again, dividing a fraction, multiply by the reciprocal. So this would be times 1/2, which would be 2 times 2 or 4. Then 2 over 2 cancels out to be 1 pi. And then the y values I'm going to multiply by A. So that 4 is what we're multiplying the y by. So we get 4, 0, negative 4, 0, 4. And that's what I'm going to be using to graph. Alright, so I'm starting off, I've got 0, 4. The amplitude is going to tell me my high-lows, so I'm kind of going to use that as a guide when I sketch these graphs. And then those y values are going to kind of tell me my spacing, or those x values, I'm sorry, are going to tell me my tick marks for x. I've got pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and pi. So I'm just going to start plotting my points. I've got 0, 4, I've got pi over 4, 0, I've got pi over 2, negative 4, 3 pi over 4, 0, pi, 4. I'm just going to connect those with the smooth curve, and we would be done. So I'm going to go through all 4 of these, because I feel like this is probably where it's going to be most confusing, and watch as many as you need. Alright, so for B, again I'm going to find my period and amplitude. Period is 2 pi over B, which would be 2 pi times 2 over 1. So we get 4 pi. Our amplitude, It's going to be absolute value of A, so 5. And again, we're going to take that parent graph and we're going to manipulate it. So we're going to multiply y's times negative 5, and we're going to do x divided by 1/2. So another way to think about the x values would be to multiply by the reciprocal. So here x values would actually be times 2. The reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1. And then our y values, we're going to multiply by negative 5. So maybe that makes it easier, multiply by the reciprocal instead of this division within a fraction. So my x values, I'm going to take my 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, and we're going to double all those. With the x, we always do the opposite. So instead of dividing by 1/2, we're multiplying by 2 because that's the same thing. So we get 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. And then my y values, remember, we start with 0, or 1, sorry, 0, negative 1, 0, 1. And here a is that negative 5. So we're going to multiply all those a values by negative 5. So we get negative 5, 0, positive 5, 0, negative 5. So my amplitude is telling me my max and min, that 5, negative 5. And then that period is telling me those x values, what to scale my x's by. So we got pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. Then we're just graphing them. So we're starting down at 0, negative 5, pi 0, 2 pi 5, 3 pi 0, 4 pi negative 5. And that would be your graph. Alright, so let's try C. So we look at C. Amplitude's absolute value of A, 2/3. Period is 2 pi divided by B. So we'd be doing 2 pi times 3 over 2. We get 2 times 3, so 6 pi over 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3 pi. So our period is 3 pi. When we do these, our x values, we're going to be multiplying by 3/2, multiplied by the reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 2/3, you can multiply by 3/2. That might be easier, so you don't have to deal with as many fractions. Multiply by the reciprocal, that's what we're doing there. X, you always do the opposite, that's why we're doing the reciprocal. And then the y values are multiplying by the given 2/3. The y you always do the same. Alright, so here we go. We've got our parent, 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. And then we are multiplying by 3/2. So we get 0, 3 pi over 4, 3 pi over 2, 3 times 3, 9 pi over 4. 2 times 3 is 6 pi over 2, which we reduce to 3 pi. Then those y values, we've got 1, 0, negative 1, 0, 1. Again, we're multiplying by that 2/3. So we get 2/3, 0, negative 2/3, 0, and 2/3. So when we go to sketch that graph, what we're going to be doing, taking that amplitude for our max and min. So I got 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 is 1. So that's a nice way to make it a nice point. And then my y's, I've got that, or my x's, I'm sorry, I've got that 3 pi over 4, 3 pi over 2, 9 pi over 4, and 3 pi for one cycle. So I've got 0, 2/3, 3 pi over 4 is 0, 3 pi over 2, negative 2/3, 9 pi over 4 is 0, 3 pi back to 2/3. And that would be your graph. Alright, so one more here. So last one, again we're going to start off with amplitude, absolute value of 4. Period is 2 pi over 4, which reduces to pi over 2. Our x values, you can divide by 4, or if it's easier, you can multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 1/4. Again, dividing by 4 or multiplying by its reciprocal, 1/4, are the exact same thing. So if you like this idea of only multiplying, always multiply by the reciprocal. For x values, you do the opposite. And then those y values, you're multiplying by 4. So you could also divide by 4. That's the same thing for the x's. Alright, so with our parent, again, we've got our quadrantal angles. Now I'm going to multiply by 1/4. Got 0, pi times 1 over 2 times 4, 8. 1 pi over 4. 3 pi times 1 is 3 pi, 2 times 4 is 8. Here I've got a 2 pi over 4, which reduces to our period, pi over 2. And then again, those y values, we've got the 1, 0, negative 1, 0, 1. Multiplying those by a. So we've got 4, 0, negative 4, 0, 4. So when we go to sketch that graph, that amplitude's telling me my max and mins. Those x values are telling me my scale. And then I'm just plotting my points. So I'm starting at amplitude, midline, negative amplitude, midline, amplitude. And it's always going to have that pattern. So homework tonight is the lesson practice. Please try to submit your homework via the Google Classroom. It seems to be easier to organize and for me to keep track of who's sent it in and who has not. So again, when you take your picture of your homework, just attach it to the Google Classroom assignment instead of emailing me. And the homework would be just the lesson practice. You guys have 2 days for this assignment, so that homework is not due until Tuesday. Please email me if you have any questions or want additional examples. Thanks, guys.